Welcome to r/Pettyrevenge, where no revenge is too small. I was at a gas station putting air in my tire. This gas station required you to pay $1 but came with a pressure gauge. The gas station across the street had free air but no gauge. As I'm filling my tires, a lady pulls up beside me and starts asking questions like how much it was to use, how much time, etc. I answered her questions as best I could, but really was more focused on filling my tires since there was a time limit. My car has annoying warning lights to let you know if a tire is low, even the spare, and I hate when those sensors are lit up. The lady is still waiting there and is getting visibly annoyed. This lady yells out, "Will you hurry up? I'm in a rush." I was confused for a second, but quickly realized she just wanted to use my time without paying. I did what any gentleman would do and proceeded to move slower. I pulled out of the spot and into a gas pump. She almost hit my car, swooping into where my car was. She jumps out, and as she puts the air pump to her tire, it shuts off. I guess I was smiling way too big, because as she jumped into her car and sped off, she yells, "F you!" at me. I was so pleased with how it all timed out, I didn't even care. Such a great moment. Then we have a similar story down in the comments. I had a similar experience. I pulled up and there was a guy in his 30s standing at the pump with his bicycle. I asked, "Are you going to use the pump?" He said not right now. So I proceeded to put my $1 in and then start making my way towards my tires. He yells at me over the noise of the pump, "Hey, you should have taken the caps off first to save time." Now, at first I thought, okay, makes sense. Then he starts to take them off for me. I didn't ask or want him to, but he did it anyway. Then, as I'm pumping the last tire, he tells me to hurry up because it's almost out of time. Now, I realize he wants to use my leftover time. Mind you, he never asked. So I finish my last tire and I would say he walks over to me, but since the third tire, he's been following me around. So he reaches out to grab the nozzle and that's where I just lose my cool. I know it's petty, but I'm petty, so what can I say? I don't let him grab it. I'm now standing there holding the trigger while air is just pouring out into the sky. He looks bewildered and says, "What are you doing?" I said I'm using my leftovers. I don't like to be wasteful. He tells me what a nice guy I am by using multiple four-letter words attached to mother. Then the pump turns off and it's his turn now. He corners up against my car and starts preaching to me and hands me a pamphlet and tells me in all his years as missionary for Latter-day Saints, I need their help the most. I started to laugh so hard he got disgusted and just left. Sorry for the long story. I just had to share. Is this like a common thing at gas stations? I've never seen strangers be such douchebags over $1. Why are they so cheap? They can't afford $1 to put air in their car tires? It's like, dude, you're driving a car. Clearly you got enough money for gas, so why not pony up $1 for air? Our next Reddit post is from Strahoser. I work as a bartender in a small cocktail bar for some time now, and I'm usually chill. But bullies can still push my buttons in the wrong way. Before starting, I may be in the wrong for doing this, but it is what it is. A week ago, a bunch of guys came in for a few. They seemed like okay dudes, early 20-ish, but the group dynamic was kinda off. Introducing the main antagonist, obnoxious guy. Too loud, snapping his fingers at me when ordering. Don't snap fingers at bartenders, kids, we're not dogs. Punching his friends in the shoulders all the time. A sportier, really aggressive version of a David Spade character he was. Next to David Spade sat the victim of most of his playful teasings, silently enduring this torment. I really felt sorry for this fellow. He wasn't a drinker, but he looked like he would rather be drinking distilled devil's piss than continue sitting next to this macho maniac. He was really uncomfortable. David continued to bug him to take a shot at least. "Come on, one with me. Don't be such a wussy, a little girl." Until, after a whole night of persuasion, finally my dude waved the white flag. "Okay, let's do one shot together, then leave me be." "Two of your most effed up shots," Spade shouted, snapping his effing fingers, while I imagined snapping his effing neck. "Oh, you'll get an effed up shot, buddy." I made them 2 layered shots, but while looking almost the same, they were different. David got stuff like Red Jock Absinthe, 70% alcohol, Stro, 80% alcohol, and Tabasco, 110% flaming diarrhea. Really nasty business altogether, and the other guy got mostly syrups, juices, harmless stuff. They looked almost identical. Red absinthe can pass visually as a cranberry juice, Stro as a syrup from brown sugar, Sambuca as anything colorless, etc. They took their shots, and all hell broke loose. The other guy chugged his shot like a champion, not even flinching. Why would he? He drank juice. But David Spade, boy oh boy, he looked like he'd had a brain aneurysm. Tears pouring from his eyes, coughing like his lungs want to come out. He had a face and a posture of a man who just got waterboarded with some sort of chili sauce. The other guy looked surprised until he caught a wink from me. But David Spade and the rest of the crew, now roaring with laughter about his misery, suspected nothing. They got their shots on the house. Poor dude was left alone, and David was a good boy for the rest of the night, deflatedly enduring small mockings from his fellows. Now, I may have used my powers in a wrong way, but this is the first and only time I mess with customers' drinks. And I regret nothing. He was rude, aggressive even, to everyone around him. F you, sporty David Spade. Honestly, OP, I don't think you need to feel bad about this at all. He did ask for your worst drink, and it sounds like you gave it to him. If anything, this has a dash of malicious compliance. Our next Reddit post is from Sniggering Piglet. I was helping my friend move last weekend, and we're driving down a double-lane highway. The speed limit was about 50 at about 10 at night. This butthole in a lifted truck and blue blinding high beams and fog lamps comes speeding up behind, and I mean full effing butthole high beams. It's fairly common for people to race down this stretch late at night with few others on the road. I'm following my friend in the left lane, coming up on another car to pass that is in the right lane. At first, I'm like, whatever, moron, I'll just merge back over to the right and let this douche truck pass. I'm too tired to deal with this stuff after going back and forth all day. Well, even though I signal and I'm starting to merge over into the right lane, douche truck gets obnoxious and decides to cut around and ride the butt of the other car in the right lane, so I can't complete my lane change. Okay, idiot. So I decide to just keep going and pass the guy on the right. He swerves right back around and rides my butt again. My friend in front of me eventually sees what was going on, and he moves over to the right lane, and I pull up beside him. We both smile at each other and decide to mess with douche truck. We both talked before about how much we hate buttholes in lifted trucks driving like morons with illegal lights. First, my friend speeds up, and the douche cuts over like he's going to weave through. Then he slows down, and I speed up, and he cuts back over. We do this for about 2 miles until the speed limit drops to 25 right before Walmart and Center Lane opens up. We both slow down to exactly 25 at the reduced ahead sign well before the actual sign, which makes this guy even more pissed. He decides to floor it past us in the center lane through the intersection right past a cop. The cop does a quick U-turn and flips his lights on and nabs douche truck going probably 70 in the 25. We finally get to his house, and the whole time we're unpacking, we can't stop laughing. Watching douche truck get screwed provided us the morale boost we needed to finish up that night. Our next Reddit post is from I'm Just Here to Get Banned. A few years ago, I was heading to class to take a final in music history class and forgot a Scantron. I stopped by the college bookstore, grabbed a Scantron, and ran up to the counter. This is when I met her. Her was a mid-50s woman with wrinkles on her face that can only come from holding a constant scowl on your face for decades. When I pulled out my card, she pointed to a sign that said $10 minimum. Yes, $10. The Scantron was about 20 cents. I can totally get a $5 minimum, but 10? Come on. Well, I didn't have any change in my pocket, but there was a take a penny, leave a penny jar. So I reached over and grabbed a couple of dimes that someone was kind enough to leave. Her put her hand over the jar and said, "You can leave change, but you can't take change." At this point, I figured I could either get really upset or play the game she wanted. I told her I understood and that there were a few more items I still needed. I proceeded to go to the furthest corners of the store and pick up about $200 worth of small items from the highest, lowest, and most inconvenient spots in the store. I walked up to the counter with my basket. The entire time, her had a wicked smile on her face like she'd won. Well, as soon as I signed for the items, I told her, "I'd like to return everything but the Scantron, please." She was livid. People don't usually yell at me, but she completely lost it. She ended up calling campus police and the other workers. When the campus police arrived, they informed her that what I did was completely legal. Her couldn't handle it, but had to refund me for everything but the Scantron. The campus police told me with a smirk to please not do that again. I said yes, sir, and headed to my final. I was about 20 minutes late for the final, but ended up making an A. Then we have a similar story from Texas, USA in the comments. Something similar happened to me at the bookstore. I needed change for the vending machine, and she pointed to the sign that states something to the effect, "We don't give change for the vending machine." So I purchased a pack of gum and asked for quarters back, which further distressed the clerk. Then I thanked her for the quarters and told her she could have the gum and walked over to the vending machine and smiled as I dropped my money in. She called campus security and the guy was eyeballing me for quite a while. Two power tripping people. Is this a thing? Do people who work at college bookstores call campus security for like pointless, totally legal things? I've never heard of this before. Our next Reddit post is from Neomoya. I worked in an emergency room for 6 years, so I'm full of stories, but when it comes to petty revenge, this one sticks out in my memory. Every person who's worked in the ER knows that Mondays are the busiest days of the week, and also when all the crazies come out. This day was no different. I worked as a nurse in triage, where you initially get assessed in the front before going to the back. Here we determine who needs to go back first and who can wait. It's not a first come first serve as most people think. We had a few stretchers in the front for people who needed to be monitored a little closer or needed IVs, blood draws, labs, etc. There were 6 stretchers, but this day was so busy, all 6 stretchers were filled, plus 5 more in the hallway. This lady comes in on an ambulance, but because her symptoms didn't indicate an emergency, she was put in a stretcher triage to wait her turn. She was in a lot of pain. After assessment, I recognized her symptoms as being caused by gallstones. Painful, but not life-threatening. We put her on a stretcher, started an IV, drew labs, and hooked her up to the monitor just in case. A few minutes later, patient's daughter comes in the front door. One look at her and we knew she would cause problems. She had everything from the shoes to the haircut. A classic rich Karen. When she saw that her mom was still in the front and hadn't seen a doctor yet, she started screaming that she knew the CEO of the hospital and that we would all be fired if we didn't get her mom back to see a doctor right now. We explained that her mom has a history of gallstones, and even the patient was saying that she's had this pain many times because of the gallstones. We explained about being really busy and that there were no rooms available in the back, and we'll get her back as soon as we could. She eventually calmed down, but was still antsy. About an hour later, a critical patient comes in and was put in the stretcher besides patient and patient's daughter. This patient had worrying complaints, but on initial assessment, we couldn't find anything wrong. Now, as a nurse, you learn to always trust your gut. When your gut sounds an alarm, you listen. Something about this patient was setting my alarm bells off, but all his vitals were normal and I had no solid evidence to declare him an emergency. I hooked him up to the monitor and kept a very close eye on him. I let the charge nurse know of my concerns, and she said to let her know as soon as something changes. Not 5 minutes later, something changed. Now, at this time, I should explain that this hospital was a level 1 trauma center, meaning we get all the bad cases from car crashes to gunshot victims. We were in the middle of gang territory. Since we had to be ready for any traumas and life-threatening injuries, we had a room with 3 beds that was closed off from the rest of the beds because traumas usually involved a lot of people and a lot of blood. Even on busy days like this one, those rooms were empty unless there was a trauma patient. Now, back to critical patient. I was taking vital signs of patient when I looked over to critical patient. I noticed a worrying change in his rhythm and stopped with patient to start assessing critical patient and see what was going on. That didn't sit well with patient's daughter. She actually grabbed my arm and told me to finish with her mom. I jerked my arm free and said I had to make sure critical patient was okay. As I turned around to critical patient, his rhythm went into VFib, life-threatening rhythm. I called the charge nurse to inform her of critical patient's condition, all while unhooking critical patient from the monitor and throwing his bed into drive. As I started pushing him back, patient's daughter actually jumps in front of the stretcher and stops it. She's screaming that her mom was here first and needed to be seen before critical patient, and screaming that I was a liar and that she was going to get me fired. I'm usually a mild-tempered person, but knowing critical patient was literally minutes from dying, I said to patient's daughter, "You have a choice. Get out of my way or get run over," as I started pushing the stretcher forward. Now, I'm really good at pushing stretchers fast and getting the patients where they needed to go in a hurry. One of the reasons why I was part of the trauma team. Patient's daughter tried to stand firm, but she saw I wasn't going to stop and jumped out of the way just as I was an inch from hitting her. Unfortunately, she didn't move fast enough and I ended up running over her foot. At this point, I didn't care and got the critical patient back to the trauma room, leaving patient's daughter screaming, lying on the floor. We spent about 30 minutes on critical patient, but he ended up dying. By the time I got back up front, patient and patient's daughter had been taken to the back to see a doctor, but my charge nurse warned me that they were filing a complaint against me. A few days later, the actual CEO of the hospital came to visit me on my next shift. He was known to be a kind and fair man. Since this happened during a time before cameras were put in the ERs, he had to take what happened from word of mouth. Apparently, patient's daughter said I assaulted her several times and put her mom's life in danger by not assessing her properly and that I should be fired. Turned out, patient did actually have gallstones and nothing else. Also, patient's daughter's foot was broken due to me running over it. I calmly explained exactly what happened and that patient's daughter's actions might have ended up with critical patient dying because of the delay caused by her actions. When I got to the part of what I said to patient's daughter and running over her foot, the CEO actually started laughing and then tried to cover his mouth to hide his laughter. He explained that patient's daughter was a friend of his sister and he knows what kind of person she is. Not only did I not get fired, but he put a personal note in my file praising my actions. On the next review, I got a large raise plus a bonus thanks to the CEO's note. This is really bizarre that this Karen got off completely scot-free. I mean, besides the broken foot. It seems to me that interfering with a medical professional who's working on a critical patient seems like some kind of definitely illegal activity. I kind of feel like she should be in jail at the very least. Our next Reddit post is from Super Potato. I live in New Jersey and we just had a snowstorm, so I thought I could make some quick cash by shoveling driveways. So I start off into a couple of houses and make about 80 bucks. Pretty good money for me. So I go to this house and this lady says she'll give me 50 bucks for shoveling her driveway and sidewalk, so I start and finish about 20 minutes later. I go up to the door and knock, but she won't open, so I go to the back door and knock. She still doesn't open. Then I see her looking at me through the window, but she quickly turns away and pretends like nothing happened. At this point, I realize that I just got tricked into doing a ton of work and I'm not getting paid. I start to walk home all pissed off and then remember that my friend who lived down the street has one of those machines that clears snow. Let the revenge begin. I borrow it from him and run down to her house. I turn it on and blast that snow that I shoveled and some more all on her yard. Then she rushes outside and starts yelling at me, but I return the machine to my friend and go home. Why would you be a douchebag to a teenage boy when the teenage boy knows where you live? That's just asking to get your house like spray painted or egged or TP'd or whatever. What a stupid old lady. That was r/Pettyrevenge, and don't forget to hit that like button because it really helps my channel out.